A new dinosaur movie has officially released in theaters called The End of Oak Street, which is about a 1980s family getting trapped in a very much prehistoric dinosaur-filled world. So we're going to dive into this movie and help you decide whether or not this is the right movie for you to watch as a Christian right now. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. The End of Oak Street is rated PG-13, so we're going to dive into 5 areas of convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus, any theological themes present within the movie, and then wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on this film. So without further ado, let's dive into the Christian conviction meter. And kicking things off with violence and gore here, this film really pushes the PG-13 boundary with this category in particular. There is a lot of dinosaur hunting, and that means clawing, scratching, biting, eating. All the things you expect dinosaurs to do, they do in this movie. They're trying to survive. And in the same way, a lot of our family, our 4 that we follow within this movie, they also are trying to survive, and they'll use anything necessary to try to survive, whether it's using a rifle or knives from the kitchen or a sledgehammer or anything in between. They use anything they can to survive and keep themselves alive from all these types of dinosaurs within the film. At the same time as well, there's going to be some fire as well as some crashes and destruction of houses and streets and things of that sort throughout the movie. When it comes to the more gory details of the film, however, there's definitely a decent amount here. Now, obviously not to the extent of a rated R film where blood is just gushing out, but it does have some moments where some blood prints and things of that sort are meant to terrify you, or blood around wounds. There even is, of course, some cases of characters missing limbs, and along with some cuts, scrapes, bruises, things of that sort along their entire body, even some broken limbs as well, all are a part of this movie. So those are things to definitely keep an eye on in watching this movie. We are going to give it a 4 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is lust, and the most we see here is 2 dinosaurs engaging in holy matrimony.
What?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I said the exact same thing in watching this film. This is obviously meant as a gag. It's meant for humor because of the way the third act is set up. It's meant to kind of lighten the mood, so to speak, before going into the final part of the film. Even still, I personally would say this is not a necessary part of the film, and ultimately for me kind of lessens my enjoyment because it just comes out of left field and it doesn't really make a ton of sense in my humble opinion. But it is a part of the movie regardless.
I don't like it.
I am going to give this a 2 out of 5 just to be on the safe side here. Our next category is substances, and the most we see specifically on screen in this category is going to be a quick wisp of some whiskey that's a part of the movie. A little later on, one of the characters calls out said character for drinking a little bit and talking about how he's had a problem for a little bit and won't really address it. That's as much as it dives into when it comes to the more alcoholic content within the movie. When it comes to more other substances, the most we see here is a character being referenced of using a cigarette. This character is underage and shouldn't be partaking in those sort of substances, and one of the characters tells him to stop, shouldn't be doing that, and kind of asks him why he's lashing out, so to speak. All that is a part of the movie, but a lot of it really isn't shown on screen. It's more stuff that is talked about, which compared to some of the other things of this film is a nice change of pace and is very good for this category, at least in terms of its severity. So all that to say, we are going to give it a 2 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is profanity, and there's a decent amount here. Hell is used, the DA words, the SH and BI words are all a part of this movie. There may be a few other uses of language throughout the film as well. There also is, of course, one use of the F word. Just a reminder, in PG-13 films, you have at least one use of the F word contained within a film, so they use one in this film. And so for us here, it's going to make it a 4 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is intense/horror scenes. This is not a horror movie in any way, shape, or form. However, this is a action thriller, and this does lean very heavy on the thriller element. It really just does a lot to make you on the edge of your seat, crawl in your skin even, or really just to terrify you in a sense, make you feel what these characters are feeling, because it's very intense. It's do or die. It's a survival type of film, which does make it very interesting, but at the same time as well, also does allow for this category to be a bit more than some other PG-13 films. At the same time as well, there's a lot of dinosaur hunting, as I talked about. A lot of it is very intense. Some of it's also within the background as well, in which we hear screaming. There's a lot of that within this movie. Lots and lots of screaming, as to be expected with dealing with creatures you don't ever expect to see in your lifetime. But in my personal opinion, probably one of the more darker sequences or things contained within the movie is there is, of course, a lot of death from dinosaurs within the movie. And some cases you do hear the eating or crunching of the dinosaur's victory. And so that is a part of the movie. If you are squeamish, this is not the movie for you to watch. Just putting that out there. But again, this is a very intense movie. It's very much an action thriller, which is pretty surprising based off the promotional material and the marketing for this film. Anyways, all that to say though, it's a thriller. That's something to keep in mind for you. It's going to be a 4 out of 5 in this category as well. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be a 16 out of 25. It is pretty high, of course, in its profanity use, as well as its intensity and violence and gore here. It is a little less than mild in its lust and its substances. Again, I don't know why they included the dinosaur thing. I got really hung up on that, especially going into the third act. All of that to say, though, these are all things that are a part of the film. So if anything we talked about compromises your convictions in any way, shape, or form, don't worry about watching the movie. Your convictions are God-given, and they're more important than any movie or show you watch. So, again, if The End of Oak Street doesn't fit with that, this is a movie you can skip. This leads us beautifully into our next conversation as we dive into some theological themes that are present in The End of Oak Street. And there is actually a few references to God and Jesus contained within The End of Oak Street, which was a little surprising. Most of it was actually contained within the marketing. So there is that. But all that to say, one of the bigger moments within the film is specifically one of the characters saying,
God's not gonna let us die here.
Greg, you only go to church at Christmas and now you're telling the kids God's looking out for us?
it's a fair statement to make from at least one of these characters, because yeah, it's relying God on the hard times and just the hard times. God's not a magical genie. Anyways, all that to say though, it is a part of the movie. There also is a little later on in the film where a character asks if they believe in God. One says yes. One person says sometimes, which I think a lot of people can relate to just because of the things we deal with in our lives. It kind of goes back to the bigger question of why does evil happen in our world? And of course, the simple answer to that, at least in a more broad, vague term, is the fact that we have free will, and sin is a part of that free will. And because of that, people do people things and people hurt people. And so anyways, just wanted to touch on that very, very briefly, but that is stuff that is a part of the movie that relates to the Bible, God, Christianity, in a sense. It's not a ton here, but there's little moments here and there. More surprising than a lot of other ones, and it's particularly when you're taking a look at other dinosaur movies and or franchises. Of course, Jurassic is the big one here, and that really doesn't talk a lot about God or anything all that much. And so seeing this talk a little bit about it, it's kind of nice, but most of it is kind of questioning and maybe even a little bit of doubt contained within that. So that is something to keep in mind if your convictions are okay with watching the movie and you're curious on what some biblical themes may be presented in The End of Oak Street. That is some of the stuff I picked up on the film, but I would not necessarily call this explicitly a Christian movie by any means. So with that down, it's time to dive into what I think of The End of Oak Street. And now listen, I wasn't originally going to check out this film this year because there's a lot of movies coming out. There's a lot of franchises stuff, and there's a lot that we here on the channel want to catch up on for you to make this as big of a library as possible. All of that to say, though, I am definitely glad I checked this film out because it definitely surprised me. It One surprised me in the way of how much it really pushed the PG-13 rating. Because it is rated PG-13, I think it probably could have been rated R and gotten away with it, just because of the violence, the intensity, the action thriller themes and sort of genre that this film firmly places itself in. And honestly, that is something I really liked about the movie because of its tone. It's something the Jurassic movies have tried and for the most part failed at. Rebirth, I think, did one of the better jobs, but they've tried to recapture that sort of thriller tone, and none have done it all that well, except for the first Jurassic Park movie, and even Rebirth did pretty decent at that at times. This one, I think, does a really solid job throughout because it follows a very ordinary family, an ordinary life, jumping into extraordinary events, and so it creates a very interesting and unique dynamic that honestly plays itself very, very well and something I personally enjoyed. One of the other reasons I'm glad I got to check this film out is it contains two actors I quite enjoy in almost every role I've seen him in. Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway are both really solid in this film, and they actually have a really nice dynamic. While yes, there are bickering and things at times that these characters go through, at the end of the day, you want to root for these characters. You want to root for their relationship, and it's nice to see. And there definitely are some moments that really pull on the heart, and they're intentional in that to really dive you into this story. So it's all things that are nice to see. At the same time as well, our other cast here is really solid. No one I particularly would say is an other sort of standout or highlight. I think overall, all the characters were solid, and overall played their parts very, very well. At the same time as well, I also enjoy the 80s aesthetic of the film. I wasn't really expecting that at all, but I quite liked it. It was nice, even if this is, of course, a film that really travels back in time as well. Also, I want to say the CG here is also really solid as well. Of course, you're dealing with dinosaurs and they're not actual things, and because of the nature of this film, doing puppetry would be a bit difficult. Not impossible, but a bit difficult. And so the CG here is solid. It does follow more modern science and research of course, dinosaurs. A lot of them are pretty hairy, have a lot of feathers on them. Again, following more kind of modern research of paleontology and things of that sort. So that's nice. Separates itself away from the Jurassic movies, which of course have that sort of clean dinosaur look, so to speak. Overall, this is a very solid movie that I thought was very entertaining and quite enjoyable, at least for me. Granted, dinosaurs are always a fun time watching in theaters, and so getting that along with Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway, it's a recipe for something that should be a fun time. That being said, I do have a couple criticisms, though, of the film. The first, of course, being the plot thread of how this all came together is a little loose, a little tacky. I wouldn't say it takes away from my enjoyment of the film, however. It still is very solid, it's still very enjoyable, but it definitely could be better in that regard. But at the same time, it's not a big plot point, it's just a little device for the film. At the same time as well, of course, that dinosaur scene that I talked about in the lust category, it's meant to be a gag and it's meant to break away and kind of ease your mind a little bit before going into the third act, which is pretty intense. There's so many other ways you could have done that. This was not the way to do it. In my personal opinion, I don't need to see that. It just took away from, honestly, what this could have been is a really great dinosaur movie to it being a fun, overall enjoyable dinosaur film, but I don't need this. It's not necessary, and it very much took me out of the film because I was like, really? This is what we're doing right now? Anyways, all that to say, do I still enjoy the film? Yes. Do I think those two criticisms are a little disappointing? Yes. But overall, I still had fun. I wouldn't say this is, the best dinosaur film since Jurassic Park. I do think Jurassic World Rebirth still has that title, at least for now. But overall, I thought it was fairly solid, and I enjoyed it for the most part. I'm giving it a 7.9 out of 10. Definitely not the worst movie I've seen this year. Definitely not one of the best movies I've seen this year, although it's very hard to compete this year because we've got some bangers this year in theaters. But those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things about The End of Oak Street in the comments, and while you're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribing for us, joining our community here on YouTube. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us. Before you go, there's a few video recommendations here that YouTube is suggesting to you. If you want to see my thoughts on the last dinosaur movie I reviewed, which is Jurassic World Rebirth, coming out last year, it's available here. And a special video that the YouTube algorithm has picked for you is available right here. So check those out if you want to hear my thoughts on all that. We'll see you all in the next one.